There is a specific kind of silence in a server room that smells like ozone and job security. It's the hum of 1,000 fans keeping the heartbeat of a logistics giant from having a cardiac arrest. For 11 years, I've been the cardiologist. I'm not the receptionist, I'm not the IT girl, and I'm sure as hell not an employee. I'm Lauren. I'm the independent vendor who owns the keys to the kingdom, proprietary code that talks to the legacy systems, and the only person who knows why the 2014 archive is named Do Not Touch or We Die. But then came Chad. Chad Langston didn't walk into the office, he vibrated into it. He was a private equity parachute drop, a VP of operations with a resume that looked like it was written by Chat GPT on a cocaine bender. He had teeth that were too white, a suit that was too blue, and a handshake that felt like clutching a wet fish wrapped in sandpaper. He was the kind of guy who used words like synergy, pivot, and low-hanging fruit without a hint of irony, the type who thought cloud computing literally meant the internet lived in the sky. I knew we were doomed the moment he walked past my desk, which is situated in a quiet corner I negotiated for back in 2016, and tapped on my monitor with his class ring. "Hey Han," he said, "can we get the Wi-Fi in the conference room boosted? I'm trying to stream a TED talk on leadership." Han. My soul left my body, smoked a cigarette in the parking lot, and came back just to stare at him. I looked up from my reconfiguration of the SQL database, which, by the way, handles about $40 million in shipping manifests daily. "I don't handle the Wi-Fi signal, Chad," I said, keeping my voice level. "I manage the enterprise architecture. You'll want to put a ticket in with the help desk for connectivity issues." He laughed, a short, barking sound. "Right, right, tech is tech. Just make it happen, okay? We're streamlining, we need agility." He walked away before I could explain that asking me to fix the Wi-Fi is like asking a brain surgeon to cut your hair because they both use sharp objects. This is usually the part where I tell you to grab a drink and buckle up, because what happened next is a masterclass in corporate suicide. And hey, while you're settling in, if you enjoy watching arrogant executives walk into rakes, maybe hit that subscribe button and drop a like. It keeps the caffeine flowing and the stories coming. Okay, back to the carnage. The thing about being a vendor for over a decade is that people forget you aren't staff. They see you every day. You have a badge. You drink the terrible break room coffee. You know whose wife is sleeping with the tennis instructor. But there is a massive legal difference. My contract isn't an employment agreement. It's a massive B2B service level agreement, SLA, with a termination clause that requires a 30-day notice, executive board consensus, and a payout that would make a CFO weep blood. Chad didn't read the contract. Chad probably didn't read the employee handbook. Chad was too busy trying to disrupt the department. 2 days after the Wi-Fi incident, I started getting the emails. They weren't requests, they were summons. All hands tech huddle 8 a.m. Strategy alignment mandatory. I ignored them. I'm a vendor. I bill by the hour for specific deliverables. Unless you're paying my meeting rate, which is triple my standard rate and requires me to wear pants that aren't jeans, I'm not coming to your circle jerk session to hear about your vision for a leaner future. Chad didn't like being ignored. He started stopping by my desk, hovering like a bad smell. "Lauren, noticed you weren't at the stand-up," he said, leaning against my cubicle wall, crossing his arms to show off his oversized watch. "I was migrating the backup servers so the investor report doesn't crash the system on Friday," I replied, not looking away from my screens. "It's in the weekly scope report I sent you. We need to be a team, Lauren. Silos are the enemy of progress. My contract specifies my scope of work, Chad. Team building exercises aren't in it." He narrowed his eyes. "We might need to review that attitude. Everyone is replaceable, Lauren. Technology is a commodity." I finally turned my chair to face him. I looked him dead in the eye. "My code isn't a commodity, Chad. It's the structural integrity of this building. You don't replace the foundation while you're standing on the roof." He smirked. That condescending, "I'm the boss and you're the help" smirk. "We'll see," he said. "I'm bringing in some new tools. Modern stuff. We're going to clean house." I watched him walk away, heading toward his corner office where he probably spent 3 hours a day updating his LinkedIn profile to visionary. He had no idea what he was looking at. He saw a middle-aged woman in a cardigan and sensible shoes and assumed I was a legacy hire, some dinosaur waiting for extinction. He didn't know that I was the meteor. The air in the office began to change. The older executives, the ones who knew where the bodies were buried and who built the cemetery, started looking nervous. The CIO, a man named Robert who looked like he'd survived 3 wars and a divorce, stopped by my desk later that afternoon. "He's asking for credentials," Robert whispered, clutching his mug like a lifeline. "He wants admin access to everything. The root directories, the archives." "Did you give it to him?" I asked. "I told him he needs to go through the proper channels. He's persistent. He says he wants to audit the inefficiencies." I laughed, a cold, dry sound. "Let him audit. He won't understand what he's reading anyway. He's dangerous, Lauren. He's got the board's ear for now. They think he's a turnaround artist. He's going to turn it around, all right," I muttered. "Right into a brick wall." I went home that night, to my quiet apartment in the suburbs, and I didn't sleep. I sat in my home office, surrounded by the glow of my own monitors, my sanctuary. I pulled up my contract. I read it again, savoring every legal term, every clause, every definition of breach. I wasn't paranoid, I was prepared. I knew guys like Chad. They were predictable. They needed a win, and they needed a villain. He was going to try to make me the villain of his success story. He was going to try to cut costs by cutting me. The next morning, the storm broke. It wasn't a shout or a scream. It was a notification. A single, glowing red notification on my Slack app. It was from Chad, and it was in all caps. Give me the shared drive password and clean out your desk. I stared at the screen. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel anger. I felt the cold, hard click of a safety being switched off. Okay, Chad, I whispered to the empty room. Let's play. I didn't reach for the keyboard to type a retort. I didn't storm into his office. I did exactly what a professional, independent, contract-protected vendor does when a clueless middle manager tries to breach a legally binding agreement. I reached for the phone, and I called my lawyer. The message sat on my screen, pulsing like a radioactive sore. Give me the shared drive password and clean out your desk. He had CC'd the HR manager, a sweet but utterly ineffectual woman named Sarah, who probably thought a firewall was something you installed in a chimney. The sheer incompetence of it was breathtaking. It was like watching a toddler try to defuse a bomb with a plastic hammer. Chad thought he was firing an insubordinate employee. He thought he was asserting dominance. He thought that by noon, I'd be walking out with a cardboard box full of staplers and framed photos of my cat, crying into a tissue. What he didn't know is that my desk isn't where I work. My desk is just a docking station. My work is in the cloud, in the encrypted tunnels of the VPN, in the automated scripts that run at 3 a.m. while Chad is dreaming of his next bonus. I took a screenshot of the message. Then I took a screenshot of the timestamp. Then I took a screenshot of the CC list. I didn't reply. Rule number 1 of corporate warfare: never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. And Chad was making a mistake the size of the Titanic. I opened my email client, not the company Outlook, but my private, encrypted business email. I attached the screenshots. I drafted a short, polite note to Marcus, my attorney. Marcus is a man who wears three-piece suits in July and regards breach of contract cases with the same enthusiasm a shark has for a leaking life raft. Subject: Material Breach of Service Agreement, Langston Logistics Body. See attached. The VP of Ops just attempted a summary termination via Slack. No 30-day notice. No board resolution. He is also demanding credentials that are contractually intellectual property of my firm until the handover period is complete. Please advise. I hit send. Then I sat back and took a sip of my lukewarm coffee. It tasted like battery acid and victory. Around me, the office buzzed with the usual morning chaos. Phones ringing, printers jamming, the low murmur of people complaining about the weather. I had no idea that the digital ground beneath their feet had just shifted. Chad walked by about 20 minutes later. He stopped, looking confused to see me still sitting there. "Did you get my message?" he asked, his voice loud enough to turn heads in the cubicles nearby. I looked up, my expression pleasantly blank. "I did, and I have forwarded it to my legal counsel for review," I said calmly. "As I am a vendor, not an employee, any changes to our service agreement need to go through the proper legal channels." His face went a shade of red that clashed with his blue suit. "I am the VP of Operations. I am the channel. I want those passwords, Lauren, now." "Those passwords control the encrypted archive of the investor relations database," I said. "My insurance policy prohibits me from handing over root access to unauthorized personnel. And currently, Chad, you are unauthorized," he spluttered. Actually spluttered. "I'm your boss. You're my client's representative," I corrected. "There's a difference." "We'll see about that," he snarled and stormed off toward HR. I watched him go. Then quietly I minimized my active windows. I didn't shut anything down, that would be sabotage, and I'm a professional. But I did pause a few non-essential maintenance scripts. Specifically, the script that clears the cache on the order processing dashboard every hour, and the script that suppresses the printer low toner alerts for the entire third floor. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. Within an hour, the complaints started. "Hey, is the system slow for anyone else?" Someone yelled from the logistics pit. "My dashboard is freezing." "Why is the printer screaming at me?" Another voice chimed in. I sat there, typing away at a documentation file, looking the picture of productivity. I wasn't fixing the issues. I wasn't even acknowledging them. Under the terms of my contract, I am required to maintain system uptime, yes. But desktop support and minor glitch resolution require a ticket, and nobody was putting in tickets because they were too busy panicking. Chad came storming out of HR about 45 minutes later. He looked furious. Sarah, the HR manager, looked like she wanted to crawl under her desk. She knew. She had probably pulled my file and realized that firing me was legally equivalent to firing the electric company. You can't just tell them to leave. You have to disconnect the service, pay the final bill, and hope the lights don't go out before you find a generator. "You think you're smart," Chad hissed as he passed me. "I'm expensive, Chad. There's a difference." He went into his office and slammed the door. The glass walls rattled. I checked my phone, a text from Marcus. Drafting the letter now, do not hand over anything. Do not leave the premises unless security escorts you. If they touch your equipment, call the police. This is going to be fun, I smiled. Fun, the dashboard lag was getting worse. I could see the server load spiking on my secondary monitor. The cache was filling up, bogging down the queries. It wouldn't crash the system, not yet, but it was like driving a Ferrari with the parking brake on. Everything was sluggish. Sticky. Frustrating, I could have fixed it with 2 keystrokes. Enter. Run. Instead, I opened a new tab and started browsing ergonomic chairs for my home office. If I was going to be fired, I might as well be comfortable. The phone on my desk rang. It was Robert, the CIO. Lauren, he sounded breathless. Chad just called me. He's screaming about insubordination. He says he wants you gone by end of day. He can want a pony, Robert. Doesn't mean he's getting one. He's threatening to cut your network access from his end. I actually laughed out loud. From his end? Robert, does he even know where the server room key is? No, but he's calling external IT support. He's trying to bring in a strike team to lock you out. Let him try, I said, my voice dropping an octave. My access is hard-coded into the API keys for the automated warehousing bots. If he cuts my user profile without migrating the keys first, robots stop moving. The warehouse freezes. There was a long silence on the other end. I didn't know that, Robert whispered. That's because you pay me to know it, Robert. Tell Chad good luck with his strike team. I'll be here. I hung up. The office lights flickered, just a coincidence, a power grid blip, but the timing was perfect. It felt like the building itself was growling. Chad wanted a war. He was bringing a knife to a drone fight, and I had the remote control. At 1 p.m. exactly, the email landed. Marcus doesn't do ish. When Marcus says early afternoon, he means 13:00:00. I was CC'd, of course, so was Chad. So was Robert, the CIO. And crucially, so was the company's general counsel, a man named Henderson, who I had only spoken to twice in 11 years, both times to sign my renewal. The subject line was simple: notice of breach and cease and desist unauthorized termination of vendor services. I opened it just to admire the formatting. It was a thing of beauty, bold text where it needed to be, citations of the Illinois Civil Code, references to specific paragraphs in my contract that I knew by heart, but which Chad had clearly treated like terms of service for a candy-crushing app. Dear Mr. Langston, it began, we are in receipt of your unauthorized demand for immediate termination and surrender of intellectual property. It went on to explain, in polite but devastating legalese, that 1. I was not an at-will employee. 2. Terminating the master service agreement required a board vote and 30 days written notice for cause, or 90 days for convenience. 3. Demanding administrative passwords to proprietary architecture without a verified transition plan constituted a security risk and a potential breach of the company's own investor compliance protocols. 4. If Chad touched my desk, my laptop, or my person, we would sue him personally for tortious interference. It was a legal sledgehammer wrapped in velvet. I sat back and watched the glass office. I saw Chad's notification ping. I saw him stop pacing. I saw him lean in toward his monitor. I expected him to pale. I expected him to pick up the phone and call legal. Instead, he laughed. I saw his head throw back. He typed something rapidly, hit enter with a flourish, and spun his chair around. A moment later, the reply hit my inbox. From Chad Langston to Marcus Vane-esque, Lauren CC, Henderson, Robert subject, notice of breach, this is cute. A lawyer letter for a temper tantrum. Lauren is a contractor. Contractors get cut when they don't perform. I'm the VP of Ops and I say she's out. She has until 5 p.m. to vacate or security will remove her. We have a new team starting Monday. Keep the legal threats for someone who cares. I stared at the screen. My mouth actually fell open. It wasn't just arrogance, it was a fundamental disconnection from reality. He had just put in writing that he was ignoring general counsel and a binding contract because he said so. My phone buzzed. It was Marcus. Did he really just reply, this is cute, to a formal breach notice? I typed back, he thinks he's in a movie, Marcus. He thinks he's the Wolf of Wall Street. He's going to be the Wolf of Unemployment, Marcus replied. I'm calling Henderson directly. Sit tight. Robert, the CIO, walked out of his office. It looked like he had aged 10 years since the morning. He walked straight to Chad's office, bypassing the assistant. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see the body language. Robert was pleading, gesturing with his hands, pointing at the ceiling, the metaphorical board, presumably. Chad was dismissive, waving his hand, pointing at his chest. Robert came out 2 minutes later, shaking his head. He walked over to my desk. He won't listen, Robert said. His voice low. He thinks you're bluffing. He thinks the contract is just guidelines. He's going to crash the compliance server, Robert, I said softly. The end-of-month audit scripts run automatically tonight. If he locks me out or if his new team tries to patch the server without the encryption keys I hold, the data corrupts. I told him, Robert said, rubbing his temples. I told him we need you for the audit. He said, I'll have my nephew look at it. He knows Python. His nephew, I repeated. Robert, tell me you're joking. Please tell me you're joking. He said he's a coding wizard. He's 19. I looked at my screens. The blue light reflected in my glasses. I saw 11 years of architecture. layers of security, redundancy, and optimization that I had built brick by digital brick. And Chad was going to hand it to a teenager because he didn't like my tone. Okay, I said. Well, Robert, I'm legally obligated to stay at my post until the contract is validly terminated or I am physically removed. So I'm going to sit here and document everything. I'm sorry, Lauren, Robert said. I'm calling the chairman of the board, but he's in the Maldives. It might take a day to reach him. We might not have a day, I said. Just then, the first real crack appeared. A junior analyst from finance popped his head over my cubicle wall. Hey, Lauren, the shared drive is asking for a credentials verification token. I can't save the quarterly projections. I looked at Chad's office. He was on the phone, laughing, feet up on the desk. I can't help you, Kevin, I said loudly enough for the room to hear. I've been ordered to stand down from all administrative tasks. But I can't save the file, Kevin said, panic creeping into his voice. If I close the window, I lose 4 hours of work. Take it up with Chad, I said, pointing a pen at the glass office. He's the new IT director, apparently. Kevin looked at Chad, then at me, then back at his screen. I opened a new text document. Log entry 1345, Finance Department reporting access token failures. Cause, token refresh script requires manual authorization which I am currently prohibited from providing. Potential data loss high. I saved the file. I named it the Chad Chronicles Vol 1, TXT. The air conditioner kicked on, a low rumble that sounded like a beast waking up in the basement. The temperature in the server room was rising. Not literally, the cooling was automated, but metaphorically the heat was on, and Chad was sitting in the sauna, wearing a wool suit, thinking it was a spa day. At 3:30 p.m., the new team arrived. It wasn't a team. It was two guys in hoodies who looked like they had just rolled out of a dorm room. The third guy in a polo shirt that said Geek Squad on it, though he had clearly tried to cover the logo with a piece of duct tape. Chad came out of his office to greet them like they were the Navy SEALs. Gentlemen, welcome to the front lines. He walked them past my desk without looking at me. This is the server access point, he said, gesturing to the main terminal, my terminal's access point. We need to migrate the user database to this new cloud platform I bought. It's called Nebula Stream, much cheaper than the custom rig we have now. I froze. Nebula Stream? That was a freemium storage locker for indie game developers, not an enterprise-grade solution for a logistics firm handling medical supplies and hazardous materials tracking. Chad, I said. I didn't shout. I spoke with the calm authority of an air traffic controller telling a pilot he's about to land on a highway. You cannot migrate the database to a non-compliant server. It violates HIPAA and the DOT regulations. Ignore the noise, guys, Chad said, waving a hand at me. She's just upset she's being phased out. Just plug in and run the wizard. Run the wizard. I watched in horror as one of the hoodie guys, let's call him Hoodie A, plugged a USB drive into the console. Whoa, this system is ancient, Hoodie said. It's running a custom Linux kernel? Yeah, get rid of that, Chad said. We want Windows, make it user-friendly. I reached for my phone. I texted Robert. They are reimaging the production server. Stop them. Then I started typing. Fast. I wasn't hacking them. I wasn't fighting back. I was downloading the logs. I was capturing the exact moment the command was entered. I needed proof that I didn't do this. That when the system inevitably vomited its own guts out, it was because Chad ordered a lobotomy. Okay, initializing migration, Hoodie B said. Says there's a conflict with the archive do not touch directory. Override it, Chad said. We need a clean slate. Chad, I stood up. That directory contains the hash keys for the encrypted backups. If you override it, you lose the history. You lose the chain of custody. Security, can we get an escort? Chad yelled, looking toward the elevator. The security guard, an old guy named Earl who I've shared Christmas cookies with for 5 years, walked over slowly. He looked at me. Chad, you want me to remove Lauren? Earl asked, confused. She's disrupting critical operations, Chad declared. Earl looked at me. Miss Lauren, it's okay, Earl, I said, sitting back down. I'm just documenting. I won't say another word. Override confirmed, Hoodia said. The screen flickered. It started subtly. The big monitors on the wall in the logistics pit, the ones that show the real-time location of every truck in the fleet, blinked. Green dots turned yellow. Then they froze. Hey, the GPS is lagging, a dispatcher shouted. Then the dashboard turned gray. A spinning wheel of death appeared in the center. I can't see the trucks, another dispatcher yelled. I have a driver in a blizzard in North Dakota asking for routing and I can't see him. Chad frowned. It's just the migration buffering. It'll come back. It didn't come back. Next, the phones. Our VoIP system is tied to the server bandwidth. If the server gets clogged with a massive, an optimized migration of terabytes of data, the voice packets get dropped. The ringing stopped. The room went eerily silent, followed immediately by the sound of 40 people saying hello. Hello, are you there? At the same time, what did you do? Robert came running out of his office, his tie askew. We're upgrading, Chad shouted over the confusion. You have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. You didn't break eggs, you broke the phone lines. Robert screamed. I sat there. I watched my private console. The error logs were scrolling by so fast they were a blur of red text. Error, database lock, error, API timeout, error, integrity check failed. And then the piece de resistance, the billing system. The automated invoicing script tried to run at 4 p.m. It tried to pull data from the database that Hoodia was currently overriding. It couldn't find the data. So, following its protocol for missing data, it defaulted to null values. Somewhere in the cloud, hundreds of invoices were being generated for $0 and 0 cents and emailed to our biggest clients. I saw the outgoing mail queue spike. 500 emails sent. 1,000 emails sent. Chad, I said, breaking my silence. You just sent free invoices to Amazon, Walmart, and the Doody. Chad spun around. What? The billing script. It ran on an empty table. It just told our clients they owe us nothing for the last month of shipping. His face went from red to white in the span of a heartbeat. Stop it. Cancel it. I can't, I said, holding up my hands. I'm unauthorized. Remember, fix it? He screamed, spit flying. Fix it now. I need a signed work order, I said coolly. And a reinstatement of my contract and an apology. I'll fire you. I'll sue you. You already fired me, Chad. My lawyer is going to have a field day with the fact that you overrode a safety protocol I warned you about in front of witnesses. I looked at Hoodie. You might want to unplug that USB drive before you corrupt the boot sector. Hoodie looked terrified. He yanked the drive out. The screens went black, all of them. The office plunged into darkness as the smart lighting system, also tied to the server, reset itself. In the gloom, only light came from the emergency exit signs and the glow of my laptop, which was running on its own battery, disconnected from the network, safe and sound. Oops, I whispered. Darkness is a powerful motivator. When the lights went out, the screaming started. Not fear screaming, but frustration screaming. Sales reps who lost calls, dispatchers who lost trucks, and one guy who I think just took the opportunity to yell hell no. Into the void without consequences. Emergency lights kicked on a buzz, casting the office in a sickly green hue. It's a reboot, Chad yelled, his voice cracking. Just a hard reboot. Everyone calm down, he was sweating. I could see the sheen of it on his forehead even in the dim light. He turned to the Geek Squad refugees. Get the power back on. Now. We didn't touch the power, Hoodie B whimpered. The lighting controller must have timed out when the server dropped. Well, override it. We don't know the password. I knew the password. It was Let There Be Light 01. I had said it myself 3 years ago. I sat in the glow of my laptop, playing solitaire. Lauren, Chad growled, looming over my desk. Give them the lighting code. Is that a formal request for vendor services? I asked, not looking up from a black queen I was moving to a red king. Just give me the damn code. Not without a contract, Chad. Liability. If I give you the code and the building burns down, it's on me. If you do it, it's on you. He snarled and pulled out his phone. The flashlight beam danced across my face. You are enjoying this. I am merely abiding by the strict parameters you set, Chad. You wanted me out. I'm out. Physically present, digitally absent. Just then his phone rang. He looked at the screen and went pale. It was the 4:30 p.m. reminder. Meeting, pre-audit investor demo. The investors, the people who controlled the money. They were expecting a demonstration of the new real-time tracking dashboard, the very dashboard that was currently a spinning wheel of death on the wall. Oh God, Chad whispered. The Zoom call. He looked at the dark screens. We can do it on my iPad. We'll use cellular data. He scrambled into his glass office. I watched him set up his iPad on a stack of books. He smoothed his hair. He put on his business face, a terrifying rictus of confidence. He connected. Could hear his voice through the glass. Gentlemen, ladies, apologies for the lighting. We're doing a sustainability drill, saving energy, green initiatives, right? He laughed. No one on the other end laughed, so a booming voice came from the iPad speaker. Show us the throughput metrics. We're hearing rumors of a billing glitch. News travels fast. The automated invoice emails must have hit the investors' inboxes too. A minor display error, Chad lied. We're patching it now, but look at the projections. He turned the iPad to face his laptop screen. But his laptop was connected to the company Wi-Fi, which was down because the authentication server was down. His laptop showed the jagged dinosaur of the No Internet Chrome page. Ah, Chad said, technical difficulties. The storm? In Ohio, we are in Chicago, Chad, the voice said, and it is sunny, right? Well, the cloud, it's dense today. I couldn't help it. I snorted. The cloud is dense. Chad, the voice said, colder now. Where is the archive? We need to see the compliance logs for the DOT audit. If we don't have those by 5 p.m., we are non-compliant. We have them. Chad said they are. Moving, we are migrating them to Nebula Stream. Nebula Stream, another voice piped up. The gaming server, why are our compliance logs on a gaming server? It's agile, Chad squeaked. Get Lauren on the line, the first voice commanded. She knows the architecture. Put her on, Chad froze. He looked out the glass wall at me. I smiled and gave him a little wave. She's unavailable, Chad said. She's dealing with a personal matter. I'm right here, I yelled, my voice carries, and in the quiet, dark office it cut through the glass like a laser. Was that Lauren? The investor asked. No, Chad shouted, that was. The cleaning lady. The cleaning lady knows the system status. She's a very smart lady. I stood up. I walked to the glass door of his office. I didn't open it. I just pressed my phone against the glass. On my screen was a large text display I had just typed out. System down. Unverified migration attempted by unauthorized staff. Data integrity compromised. Chad saw it. He tried to block the iPad's camera with his body, but he fumbled. The iPad tipped over, camera facing the glass. The investors saw me, they saw the sign, they saw the dark office. They saw the Geek Squad guys holding a smoking USB drive. Chad, the investor's voice was deathly quiet. Terminate the call. Do not touch anything else. We are contacting the board. The iPad screen went black. Chad stood there in the dark. He looked like a man who had just realized he was standing in the middle of a minefield and he had just stepped off the pressure plate. I tapped on the glass. Hey, Chad, I said, my voice muffled but audible. I think your sustainability drill is over. The office was dead silent for about 10 seconds after the call ended. Then the whispers started. It's amazing how fast information travels in a corporate environment. Faster than fiber optics. By the time I walked back to my desk, the warehouse manager in Gary, Indiana, probably knew that Chad had wet the bed in front of the money men. Robert, the CIO, came out of his office. He wasn't panicking anymore. He had reached that state of Zen calm that comes when you know you aren't the one who is going to get fired. They called me, Robert said, leaning on my cubicle wall. The chairman called me from a sat phone on a boat. How's the weather in the Maldives? I asked. He didn't say. He asked why the lead investor just texted him saying the company is being run by a toddler with a screwdriver. Accurate, I noted. He asked about you, Lauren. He asked if you had been terminated. And what did you say? I told him the truth. I told him Chad tried to terminate the vendor contract without board approval, locked you out of admin, and then tried to overwrite the SQL database with a USB stick he found in a parking lot. I chuckled. You added the parking lot part? Creative license. It captures the essence. What did the chairman say? He said, read me the termination clause. I leaned back in my ergonomic chair. I was still shopping for a new one, just in case. Clause 14, Section B. 30 days notice. Written cause, board consensus. Exactly, Robert said. He realized that if we fired you today, effectively immediately without cause, we owe you the full contract value for the remainder of the year, plus the penalty fee, plus. If the system is down due to our negligence, we are liable for your reputational damages. I do love my lawyer, I mused. Marcus writes contracts like he's designing bear traps. Chad is in there calling headhunters, Robert whispered, tilting his head toward the glass office. I can see him on LinkedIn. He thinks he can jump ship before it sinks, I said. But he punched the hole in the hull. The lights suddenly flickered back on. Hey, we did it, one of the Geek Squad guys yelled. You didn't do anything, I said to the air. The automated failsafe finally kicked in. It rebooted the lighting controller to default settings after 60 minutes of inactivity. We fixed it, Chad yelled, running out of his office. See? Everything is fine, it was just a glitch. He ran to the main dashboard, it was still gray. The spinning wheel was gone, replaced by a simple text error, no data source found. Why isn't the map back? Chad demanded, turning to Hoodie. The database is empty, sir, Hoodie mumbled. When we stopped the migration. I think we wiped the index. The index? Chad asked. What's the index? I couldn't help myself. The index is the map, Chad. You have the books, but you burned the library card catalog. The data is there, scattered in a million pieces, but the system doesn't know where to look for it. Chad stared at the screen. Can we? Rebuild it? Sure, I said. It takes about 3 weeks to reindex a database of this size. Assuming you have the encryption keys. Which you have, Chad said. Pointing at me, which I have, I agreed. And which I am contractually obligated to keep secure until my replacement is fully vetted and onboarded. Since these two gentlemen, I gestured to the Hoodies, are not vetted and you are not technical staff. I can't give them to you. I am ordering you, and the board is watching you, I said, pointing to his office phone. The light was blinking. A priority line. That's the chairman, Robert said helpfully. Chad looked at the phone like it was a cobra. You should probably get that, I said. He hates waiting. Chad walked slowly back into his office. He picked up the phone. He didn't sit down. He stood at attention. We couldn't hear the chairman, but we could hear Chad. Yes, sir. No, sir. It was a strategic. No, sir. I didn't know the contract. Yes, she's still here. No, I didn't touch her computer. Yes, sir, understood. He hung up. He looked like he had been physically beaten. Walked out, he looked at me. He wants to talk to you, Chad said. His voice was hollow. Transfer it to my desk, I said. I picked up my phone. This is Lauren. Lauren, the chairman's voice was crisp, cutting through the static of the satellite connection. Robert tells me we have a situation. You have a situation, sir. I have a breach of contract claim. Let's not get litigious yet. Can you fix it? I can restore the index from the localized backup on my secure drive. It will take about 4 hours. Do it. I can't, sir. I've been terminated. If I touch the system now, I'm working without a contract. I'm a liability. There was a pause, a long, expensive pause. What do you want, Lauren? I want the termination notice rescinded in writing. I want an apology from Mr. Langston. And I want my rate renegotiated to reflect the increased complexity of the working environment. Done, the chairman said instantly. Fix the ship. We'll deal with the captain later. I'll wait for the email confirmation, sir. I hung up. Chad was staring at me. You held the company hostage. No, Chad, I said, opening my terminal. I just demanded payment for the ransom you created. It took me 3 hours, not 4, to restore the index. I'm good at what I do. By 8 p.m., the dashboards were live. The trucks reappeared on the map. Billing system stopped sending $0 and 0 cents invoices. though we'd have to issue corrections for the ones already sent, which was going to be a PR nightmare. I was the only one left in the office besides Robert, the security guard Earl, and Chad. Chad had spent the last 3 hours shredding documents. I could hear the machine whining from his office. It sounded like a frantic beaver chewing through a dam. When the green lights finally stabilized on the server rack, I packed up my bag. Leaving, Chad stood in the doorway of his office. He had loosened his tie. He looked disheveled. "Job's done," I said. "System is stable. I'll be back at 9 a.m. per the chairman's request." "You think you won," he said. "It wasn't a question." "I think the company survived," I replied. "That's usually the goal. You undermine me. You set me up to fail." "Chad," I sighed, "I gave you the map to the minefield. You used it to wipe your ass. That's not a setup. That's natural selection." He didn't reply. He just watched me walk out. The next morning, the atmosphere was toxic. Chad had called an emergency all-hands meeting at 9:30 a.m. in the main atrium. "This is it," Robert whispered to me as we gathered with coffee cups. "He's going to try to spin it." Chad stood on the mezzanine balcony, looking down at the 100 or so employees gathered below. He had regained some of his composure. He had a fresh suit on. "Team." He projected his voice. "Yesterday, we experienced a significant outage. I want to be transparent with you." I raised an eyebrow. "Transparent?" "We attempted a necessary upgrade to our legacy systems," Chad continued. "Unfortunately, we encountered resistance from certain legacy vendors who were unable or unwilling to support the new vision." He looked directly at me. The crowd turned to look at me. "The failure of the system was a result of outdated architecture that couldn't handle the speed of modern business," Chad lied. "We had to roll back the changes to maintain operations, but let me be clear, this only proves that we need to accelerate our transition away from expensive, obstructionist contractors." A murmur went through the crowd. He was blaming me. He was blaming the person who stayed late to fix his mess. I felt the rage bubble up. Not the hot, screaming rage, but the cold, liquid nitrogen rage. I opened my mouth to speak, to cite the logs, to dismantle him, but I didn't have to. From the back of the room, a voice boomed out. It was Helen, the senior director of finance. Helen is 60 years old, wears pearls every day, and is scarier than any biker I've ever met. "Excuse me, Mr. Langston?" Chad paused. "Yes, Helen. Are you referring to the outdated architecture that successfully processed $2 billion in logistics last year without a single downtime event until you arrived?" The room went silent. "We are moving forward, Helen," Chad said dismissively. "We can't look back." And regarding the obstructionist contractor, Helen continued, stepping forward. "Is that the same contractor who flagged the billing error you authorized? Because according to my team, if Lauren hadn't stopped that script, it would have legally waived our rights to payment on 40,000 shipments. That's a roughly $12 million mistake." The gasp from the crowd was audible. "12 million? We caught that in time," Chad stammered. "Lauren caught it," Helen said, her voice sharp as attack, "while you were trying to have security remove her." "This is not the forum for this discussion," Chad shouted, his face reddening. "Then where is the forum?" Another voice. It was Kevin from the warehouse team. "'Cause I was on the phone with a driver who was stuck in a snowbank for 2 hours because his GPS went dark. He could have frozen to death. Was that part of the new vision?" "Enough," Chad yelled. "Everyone back to work." Now, he turned and stormed off the balcony. But nobody moved. They were all looking at me. Helen walked over to me. She didn't smile. Helen doesn't smile, but she nodded. "I saw the logs you sent to the shared drive, Lauren. The Chad Chronicles? Nice touch." "I thought transparency was important," I said. "It is," Helen agreed. "I forwarded them to the board's audit committee this morning." I smiled. The trap wasn't just closed, it was welded shut. At 11 o'clock a.m., the elevator doors opened and the Grim Reapers arrived. It was Marcus, looking like $1 million in a pinstripe suit, flanked by two paralegals carrying bankers' boxes. And walking with them was a man I hadn't seen in 3 years, Mr. Sterling, lead investor from the Zoom call. They didn't stop at reception. They walked straight through the bullpen, past the whispering employees, and headed for the boardroom. Robert came running to my desk. "They're here. They want you in the room. Me, you, and Chad. It's a show trial, Lauren. Come on." I grabbed my laptop. I grabbed my thermos. I walked into the boardroom. Chad was already there. He was sitting at the far end of the long mahogany table. He looked small. The bravado from the balcony was gone. Mr. Sterling sat at the head of the table. Marcus sat on his right. "Sit down," Sterling said. I sat. Chad sat. "Mr. Langston," Sterling began, his voice devoid of emotion, "we have received a report from the finance director. We have received a technical audit from the CIO. And this morning, we received a formal notice of material breach from Miss Lauren's counsel." He slid a thick document across the table. It landed with a heavy thud in front of Chad. "You attempted to terminate a critical infrastructure vendor without cause," Marcus spoke up, his voice smooth and dangerous. "In doing so, you triggered the exclusivity clause. You also attempted to bypass security protocols, which is a violation of the NDA my client signed. You exposed her to liability." "I was managing the department," Chad argued, but his voice was weak. "I have the right to choose my team." "You have the right to manage employees," Sterling corrected. "You do not have the right to vandalize the company's assets. And let's be clear, this architecture is an asset." Sterling opened a folder. We have reviewed the logs. The command to overwrite the database came from your login, Chad, after you were warned. It was the consultants, the Geek Squad guys. You authorized them, I said quietly. I have the recording of you telling security to remove me so they could run the wizard. Chad glared at me with pure hatred. This is personal, isn't it? You just hate that I tried to change things. It's not personal, Chad, I said. It's binary, zeros and ones. You tried to force a zero where a one belonged. The system rejected you. I just watched it happen. Sterling cleared his throat. We are looking at significant exposure here. If the clients find out about the data breach, and they will because the $0 invoices have already raised flags, you need a scapegoat. We need to show that the problem has been excised. Chad looked hopeful. Exactly, we blame the vendor. We say she, Mr. Langston. Sterling cut him off. You are not listening. The problem isn't the vendor. The vendor is the only reason we are still operational today. Marcus leaned forward. My client is prepared to sue for wrongful termination, defamation, and breach of contract. The damages would likely exceed $5 million. Chad's eyes widened. However, Marcus continued. She's willing to settle. Settle? Chad asked. She's willing to return to work, Sterling said, under a new agreement. He slid another document toward me. Retainer increased by 200%, Sterling listed the terms. Direct reporting line to the board, bypassing the VP of operations. Full veto power over any technical changes to the core infrastructure. And a guaranteed 3-year extension. I looked at the contract. It was beautiful. It was everything I had ever wanted. And Chad, I asked. Sterling looked at Chad. Mr. Langston, you are being placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into gross negligence. Leave? Chad stood up. You can't do that. I have a contract. Your contract, Marcus said with a shark-like grin, has a morality clause and a competence clause. I believe you violated both. Get out, Sterling said. This is bullshit. Chad screamed. She's just a computer janitor. And you, Sterling said, are a liability. Security? Earl, the security guard, opened the door. He had been waiting. He looked happy. Mr. Langston, Earl said, please hand over your badge. Chad looked at me. He looked at the board. He looked at the badge in his hand. He threw it on the table. You'll regret this, he spat at me. You're stuck in the past. Maybe, I said, signing the new contract with a flourish. But my past pays better than your future. Earl escorted him out. We could hear him shouting all the way to the elevators. The room went quiet. Thank you, Lauren, Sterling said. Please keep the lights on. Always, I said. The office is different now. Quieter. Chad was formally terminated 3 days later. The official memo said he left to pursue other opportunities. We all knew the only opportunity he was pursuing was unemployment benefits. The new team he hired, the Geek Squad duo, sent a bill for their services. I framed it and hung it in the server room. It hangs right next to the fire extinguisher, which feels appropriate. My new contract kicked in the following Monday. The money is obscene, truly. I'm making more as a consultant now than the CFO makes in salary. And the best part? I answer to no one in this building. When the new VP of operations arrives, nervous guy named Peter who treats me like an unexploded bomb, he asks for permission before he even enters my aisle. Lauren, he'll say, hovering 10 feet away. Is it a good time? It's always a good time, Peter, I'll say, as long as you don't touch the thermostat. But it's not just about the money or the power. It's about the vindication. I walked past Chad's old office yesterday. It's being converted into a wellness room or some nonsense. The glass is still there, but the arrogance is gone. I thought about him out there in the world, updating his LinkedIn, spinning his story about how he was too visionary for a legacy logistics firm. He'll land somewhere else. Guys like Chad always do. He'll find another company with stable infrastructure and a vendor he thinks he can bully. He'll try again. And somewhere, another Lauren will be waiting for him. Tonight, I'm the last one here. It's 9 p.m. The cleaners are vacuuming the carpets. The servers are humming that steady electric tune I love so much. I pull up the dashboard, green lights all across the board. The trucks are moving, the money is flowing, the machine is alive. I open my drawer and pull out a small bottle of expensive bourbon, a gift from the chairman. I pour a splash into my coffee mug. I pull up YouTube on my third monitor. I search for Danny DeVito eating an egg. Don't judge me, it's soothing. There's something purely chaotic yet comforting about it. I take a sip. It burns, then settles warm in my chest. I check my email one last time, a notification from LinkedIn. Chad Langston has viewed your profile. I smile, I move my mouse, I click block. Then I lean back, listening to the hum of the fans and the crunch of Danny DeVito's egg. The system is stable. The intruder is gone, the firewall held, we're all healed. If you enjoyed watching a corporate suit get disassembled by fine print and malicious compliance, give this a like. And remember, be nice to your IT vendor. We know your browser history. Competence speaks louder than titles. Lauren quietly let her meticulously crafted contracts do the talking. You can't fake expertise, especially when the whole infrastructure depends on it. Real authority is earned, not demanded. Appreciate you all for sticking through this one. See you in the next story.